Bye-bye.
Turks, Cenk Uygur, Kasparian with you guys. Donald Trump is in the middle of trying to steal this election. There are hilarious parts to that, including Rudy Giuliani's brain leaking out of his head. We will get to that. There are also disastrous parts of this story. And before Anna even gets there, and then I'll rage about it in a minute as well. But Democrats, hello, hello. Do you effing exist? Do you exist, Democrats? You might want to get up and do something at some point in your lives. Democratic leadership, as always, missing in action, total losers, don't understand politics at all. Yes, I'm upset. Anyway, all right, let's just get to it, Anna. Go ahead.
All right, well, the election saga in the state of Michigan unfortunately continues, and of course it involves the Republican members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers who initially refused to certify the election results, then later decided to vote unanimously to certify the election results, indicating that the county did vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. And then now they're saying that they would like to rescind their votes to certify the election results. Now, let me be clear in stating that they don't have the ability to do it at this point. Now it's up to the Michigan State Board of Canvassers, so the State Board of Canvassers, in order to certify the election results. But at this point, what the Wayne County Board has done in certifying is done. They can't go back, they can't rescind it. It's now up to the state to make the decision as to whether they're gonna certify or not. But it appears that Donald Trump is going to try to influence state lawmakers into intervening. And I'll give you those details. But first, let's talk a little bit about why these Republican members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers changed their minds and wanted to rescind the certification. So the board's GOP chairwoman, Monica Palmer, and board member William Hartman signed affidavits stating that they only voted for the certification because other members promised a full audit of the county's votes. Palmer's affidavit stated that the Wayne County election had serious process flaws which deserve investigation. I continue to ask for information to assure Wayne County voters that these elections were conducted fairly and accurately. So the argument here is, well, the Democratic members of the board promised us that there would be a full audit. The Democratic members of the board are arguing, look, first off, no one has filed a formal request for an audit yet, so relax. And secondly, we were all under the understanding that this was a non-binding part of the negotiation. And look, the important thing to take away from this is that there's no evidence of fraud. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing in Wayne County. And more importantly, the Republican members of the board specifically wanted to single out Detroit, which overwhelmingly voted for Joe Biden and is also predominantly African-American part of the county, right? When they found some issues with other parts of the county, all of a sudden, they're okay. They want to certify those certain neighborhoods in the county. But when it comes to Detroit, they wanted to essentially prevent the certification of the votes in that area. Of course, that led to many people accusing them of targeting the area due to racist reasons, due to their loyalties to Donald Trump. And it's turned into a giant nightmare, a giant mess. Before I get to more details, Cenk, jump in.
Yeah, so let me be super clear on the facts of why this issue is preposterous. So they asked the Republicans who are now trying to rescind their certification, which, by the way, again, is not a thing. That's just legally not possible. But all they're trying to do is create total and utter chaos for their actual goal, which I'll get to in a second. So they say, okay, but you want to certify the areas that are 95% white and Republican, even though they had more of the so-called errors you're worried about than Detroit. And you want to not certify Detroit, which is 80% black, even though it had less errors, less theoretical errors, according to what you're saying. Yes, the white areas should be certified, the black areas should not be certified, even though the white Republican areas had more errors. Well, how do you explain that other than I'm a racist fascist who'd like to steal this election and I don't give a damn about the law? And there's no other explanation. These people are absolutely despicable. Now, the second part of it is, they say, well, that's why we're asking for an audit, where there might have been clerical errors in 100 or a couple hundred votes. Oh, okay, wow, okay, well, that might really affect the election in Michigan. You know how much Biden won Michigan by? 157,000 votes, 157,000 votes, not 100 or 200 votes. So let's say they were right, and they said, hey, you know what? Let's leave poor white Republican voters alone. Let them make all the errors they like, and don't audit them. Certify right away, right? But these African American Democratic voters, okay, well, you know, we found that, let's make up a number, 112 clerical errors, which is not even their fault, right? So we should invalidate 157,000 vote lead. That's the actual argument that they are making. So now, why? Why in the world are we even having this insane conversation? Well, because of two main lunatics, obviously Trump and Giuliani, and they will not relent. But that's obvious. The fact that they've lost their minds is super obvious. The emperor has no clothes. Hey, everybody, media, Democrats, Republicans are hopeless as a party. But he has no mind. He has no mind. They're lunatics. But that's not the main reason why. I don't want it to be like, oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. They're trying to steal an election. That's hilarious. It's not hilarious, because the real motivation is to go to Michigan and Pennsylvania, and he needs to overturn 3 democratically held elections. So he needs to steal 3 states with no evidence, none. You go to their legislators and go, just give me a different set of electors.
Right.
And we create a constitutional mess. And then the Republicans just declare me the winner, and we steal the election, and we end democracy, and we end America.
So that is definitely the strategy they're turning to, because they had absolutely no success by going to the courts. Giuliani made an absolute fool out of himself. Trump's campaign lawyers have dropped out of various cases in key battleground states. And so to your point, Cenk, there are 3 states that the Trump campaign are now targeting in order to overturn the results. Clearly, Michigan is one of them. That's what we're talking about right now. But they're also focusing specifically on Milwaukee. Okay, so in Wisconsin, and they're focusing on Atlanta in Georgia.
All heavily black Democratic cities, and so they want to disenfranchise black voters. We're not that far from them saying, why don't we just bring back slavery? I mean, as long as we're breaking the law and we don't care about the Constitution and we're burning our democracy to the ground, and we're saying no black people should have their votes count. I mean, well, why don't we just go all the way with it? And Democrats, this is the point you might want to speak up, you idiots. All that the Republicans are doing is putting this message out at 1,000 miles per hour. Yes, it's insane, but you have to counter. That's how politics works. When they scream madness from the rooftops and you don't challenge it, you go, oh, I am above it. When they go low, I go high. And you sit in your stupid basement and don't do anything. Guess what? Poll says 68% of Republicans think the election was rigged. 68% think that the election was completely fraudulent with 0 pieces of evidence. That's the sorry state that we're in. Get up and do something. There's a lot more, including Trump's illegal actions.
Yes, so before I get to Trump's illegal actions, to your point, Cenk, today, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris held a press conference.
Finally.
And one of the questions that was asked had to do with why Biden hasn't pursued any type of legal action in response to Trump's refusal to concede. And Biden argued that it would take too long, that he would rather focus on meeting with Republican governors in order to coordinate his coronavirus response. But I really do feel like, given the new route that Trump's campaign has taken, they really need to have a robust response, a real game plan in place, and they need to stop minimizing the real threat that we have here, because we have seen Republican lawmakers enable Trump and refuse to tell the truth publicly. I'm really tired of Democratic lawmakers like Chris Coons and even Joe Biden himself telling the world, oh, don't worry, these Republicans are talking to me behind the scenes and they're saying that they know who really won and they're not worried. No. I don't care what they're saying privately, because publicly they're saying something completely different and they're refusing to acknowledge the reality of this election. And at this point, you're right, Cenk, Democrats have to do something and Joe Biden has to do something. Ignoring it doesn't mean it's gonna go away.
So they call a press conference and you think, just like I said, finally, oh my God, great. He goes, when he gets a question, apparently he called a press conference to say, no, I'm actively not going to do anything. Look, I don't know that the correct course of action is legal action by Joe Biden, but you might want to open your mouth and talk about how they're trying to steal the election. They are on the opposite side of you. They're right now trying to end democracy because they're un-American. They'd rather have power than have a democracy. You might want to make that point so that people understand what is happening. Nope. Chris Coons, oh, my Republican friends who I love so much, and I constantly go to their prayer breakfasts and we hang out and talk about how much we're gonna send emissaries all across the world to try to imprison and maybe even kill gay people. They tell me that secretly they know they lost, but they're just trying to end our democracy by taking away all black voters' ability to vote. Isn't that funny? Oh, it's such good. Hey, let's fist bump, everybody. Let's fist bump. Oh, such great bipartisanship. Why don't you out them? Do you have any ounce of integrity at all, Chris Coons? Oh no, but that's a private speech between me and my Republican colleague who I care so much more about than I care about you, African-American voters. They're trying to steal your vote. I don't care. My Republican colleague I care about a lot. We're both inside the club and we're both incredibly wealthy and we're great friends. So as he kids around about how they're going to end democracy and eliminate your right to vote, I won't tell you who they are. I'm on Biden's side. So the Republicans are the worst in terms of what they actually do, and the Democrats are the worst in fighting back for their voters, for everybody. It's an insult to everyone who voted for Joe Biden that he refuses to fight back against Donald Trump.
So I have a lot more details that you guys should know about. So when the two Republican board members for the Wayne County Board of Canvassers said that they wanted to rescind their vote to certify the election results, it was announced in an interesting way. And I'm reading this from the New York Times. The New York Times wrote that the announcement about the Republicans' attempt to rescind their certification votes arrived in a news release from a Virginia-based public relations firm, Proactive Communications, that has been paid millions for consulting work for Trump's campaign, and whose founder, Mark Serrano, has been a frequent television defender of the president's. Okay, so that's, I think, very relevant. But in addition to that, after the board voted unanimously to certify the election results, Donald Trump hit up the Republican board members. And that has been confirmed by Monica Palmer. That is one of the Republican board members. And she said to the Washington Post, and I quote her, "I did receive a call from President Trump late Tuesday evening after the meeting. He was checking in to make sure I was safe after hearing the threats and doxing that had occurred." So okay. I'm gonna put her accusations of doxing and threats on all that aside for a second. She was asked repeatedly, did Trump pressure you in any way to rescind or try to rescind your vote to certify? And she kept denying it, but every time she denied it, you can just sense from her answers that she was getting more and more uncomfortable. And then it turns out that Donald Trump has invited Michigan state lawmakers to the White House on Friday. Republican state lawmakers. Now, why would he want to do that? Well, at this point, it's really up to the state to certify the election results for the state of Michigan. And so there is legitimate concern that Trump is going to try to influence Republican state lawmakers to play ball.
So let me explain how that works. Eventually, the states send electors to the Electoral College. And so normally in a democracy and in this country, the way that it's worked is whoever wins the state, well, their slate of electors go to the Electoral College, and that's uneventful, right? In this case, Trump is saying, why don't the Republicans in these states just send a different slate of electors? Then it'll go to Congress, and the Republicans in Congress will say, yeah, we accept Trump's slate of electors. We don't actually have to win the election at all. And now, this is not a wild theory. They actually could do that. We had Harvard professor Larry Lessig on now weeks ago to explain this. Jonathan Larson at TYT Investigates wrote a story about it from right after the election at tyt.com that you could check out. So this is a well-known strategy. Democrats go, oh, don't worry, they won't do it. What? Why wouldn't they? You're telling me Donald Trump won't try to cheat? Are you insane? Do you have eyes? Do you have ears? He's been trying to cheat in 1,000 different ways right now. It's not in the past. He's still sitting in the White House trying to steal this election. So Michigan has a Democratic governor, but Republican legislature. So he doesn't need to win the state. He just needs to get the legislature to go, yeah, we don't care who won. We don't care, and we don't even have to throw out the votes. We don't have to do anything. We just appoint a different slate of electors, and then we end democracy. And now the Republicans rule forever. So who cares about democracy as long as we have power?
And also to further reinforce your point, Cenk, the way that Michigan has been set up was already pretty undemocratic. So for instance, it's been heavily gerrymandered in favor of Republicans. So Michigan State's legislature is controlled by Republicans because of the gerrymandering. Democratic candidates actually received more votes in the 2018 election. So I bring that up because Republicans think outside the box. They will find ways to basically rig things in their favor to give themselves an advantage, and to think that they wouldn't be influenced by Donald Trump. I mean, what kind of meeting is that going to be? It's going to be some sort of closed door meeting, I'm guessing. Who knows what kind of promises Trump is going to offer to these people. And here's who I know will be there on Friday. So the Senate Majority Leader will be there, and the House Speaker from the state of Michigan will be there. And there's a little tiny bit of good news. So far, we've heard from the Michigan Senate Majority Leader. His name is Mike Shirkey, and he said that Biden is the president-elect, and that an effort to award Michigan's electoral votes to Trump is not going to happen, according to the news outlet Bridge, Michigan. So that's what he said on the record. But again, he has agreed to meet with Donald Trump on Friday, and he will be there along with the Michigan House Speaker.
Yeah, well, there's two giant caveats to that. The people who are now trying to rescind their certification, they also said Biden had won. And then they're like, oh, after talking to Trump, they're like, just kidding, Trump won. We are now Trump robots. We will do exactly as dear leader tells us. We will steal your democracy away from you and claim to be patriotic, by the way. So, and then number two, Lindsey Graham, among so many other Republicans, said, no, look, we will never nominate a Supreme Court justice in the last year before an election. You can use my words against me. He literally said that. And then when Amy Coney Barrett came up, they confirmed her a week before the election. They're like, yeah, we were lying. Who cares? Who cares? We're Republicans. We lie for a living. Why wouldn't we lie now? Yeah, I changed my mind, right? So those two, why do they even go to the White House? To do what? To do what? So what, are they gonna disagree with Trump? No, he's gonna bully them. They're gonna be, okay, I'm so sorry, right? So now we're at real risk. We're at real risk that Republican legislators will turn around and go, we don't care. We award the election to Donald Trump, even though we know for an absolute fact he did not win it. So meanwhile, Democrats are still in their basement. Now, one last thing. So you say, oh, but Cenk, this is what the establishment always says. But Cenk, there's nothing they could do. Our poor beloved Democratic leadership. They have to be the weakest, most neutered people on the planet and hide in their basement forever. You don't understand. What could they possibly do? Well, okay. Here's one thing they could do, and of course they've done the opposite, as I'll show you. There are 2 federal laws that Donald Trump potentially broke by reaching out to people who are certifying the election. It is interfering with an election and voting rights. It's the 2 laws, same 2 federal laws that Lindsey Graham also might have violated in interfering with the Georgia Secretary of State. That's a fellow Republican that outed him. Those are, one of them carries a 1-year prison sentence. What the Democratic leadership could say is, look, we don't know yet whether Donald Trump has broke the law on interfering with this election, but if he has, and we are going to absolutely positively pursue this to the end of the earth, we guarantee you that Donald Trump will sit in a prison cell for trying to steal this election and for trying to end our democracy, not on our watch. This is a democracy, people's vote counts. We're gonna fight for our voters and we're gonna fight for America. We're way more American than they are. These un-American sons of bitches will not steal this election or end this democracy. And if they try it, Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump will both go to prison. Now we're having a giant national conversation and everybody in America is talking about, should Trump go to prison? Did he break the law? Are they trying to steal the election? Are we having any of those conversations? I mean, some folks in the media say, oh, this is quizzical, oh, this is weird. Oh, they're so strange, right? Democrats say nothing. And the only people talking about stealing the election are the Republicans pretending the Democrats stole it. Oh my God, they're so bad at politics. That's why Joe Biden barely won against the racist, fascist idiot, con man, an obvious con man who's been a con man his whole life. And he could barely beat him this time and they lost to him last time. The Democratic Party is abysmal. And we gotta turn that ship around immediately. These guys are gonna get killed in 2024. If they manage to actually take the White House in an election they actually won.
All right, we gotta take a break, but we're not done with this theme because there's more shenanigans coming from the Trump campaign, a completely unhinged press conference today featuring Rudy Giuliani. We have that and more when we come back.
Time to thank the Young Turks. That's not us, that's you guys. So
everyone who contributes at tyt.com/go helps to get the progressive message out. You guys are the best. So let me do shout outs here. Mark H in Maryland, $50. William in West Virginia, $27. Carissa in Oklahoma, $5. Jude in California, $50. Robin in New Jersey, $50. Steven in California, $420. We love you guys. You help us beat back all the right-wingers with all their billionaire money. Let's do it together at tyt.com/go. PragerU is a right-wing media outlet that gets $20 to $25 million a year from billionaire backers. TYT doesn't have billionaires cutting us checks, but the good news is that we don't need them. Okay. Bring it down. TYT can beat the right-wing media and their billionaire funders with contributions of just $200,000 a month from TYT fans donating to tyt.com/go. And we're already halfway to our goal. Look, whether you give $3 or $3,000, your contribution helps us press on. And it might sound like it's a lot of money, but remember, it's only 10% of what they get from billionaires in these giant checks. And with 10% of their money, we're mauling them. And we can continue to get that progressive message out to everybody. And since we're only accountable to you, our fans, and not to corporate backers, we can cover topics like Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and definitely getting money out of politics.
When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total, and that's the way it's got to be.
2020 is everything. Everything will be decided in 2020, and then we'll either have pessimism a long time, or we'll have optimism.
There is some good news when it comes to elections throughout the country, especially for progressives.
He's struggling in polls. He's trailing Joe Biden in many of these battleground states. And he knows that if he makes it difficult for voters to cast their ballots, especially as we're dealing with this pandemic, well, maybe it'll give him an edge over Biden.
We need to get rid of these people who are in office, who enable these systems that continue to oppress us. Start using your votes and your dollars for the people who want to preserve your community and your humanity.
Defiance is what you need in order to fight for what you know is right. The fight never ends.
progressive candidates come on this show, we help them, and they've at least got a fighter's chance.
Expand the squad.
Here we go, Squad 2.0. Corey Bush, Jamal Bowman.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
This time, it's real. If he wins another term, God knows what he'll do to our government, our democracy, and our way of life.
We need solidarity, and it begins with you.
Who's gonna fix it? Who's gonna fix it? Goddamn right.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it
doing
was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
It is wrong to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country.
Look, I tell you guys, most important thing is voting in primaries. Primaries.
I hope every American will vote for the candidate and party of his choice, but vote.
We cannot continue to complain about corruption and complain about what's happening in this country and continue to vote for it.
Let's get it right this time. It could be a moment of redemption for what happened in 2016. All right, back on the Young Turks. So on a lighter note, we're in day 2 of the 10 days of Black Friday for shoptyt.com. They've got some great merchandise and some great deals there. So make sure that you check it out, including No Justice, No Peace scarves, which I really enjoy, and feminist as you get it. So those just came in. So those are great new products. Check that out when you get a chance. I'm gonna go to our member section. Someone who likes Bernie Sanders made a great point. He said, GOP, there's evidence of voter fraud in the votes from Detroit, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. They forgot to multiply the vote totals by 3/5. You think they won't make that point soon? There is no end, there is no bottom to their barrel. So now the rest of the world is sending us condolences, right? I got some from Canada earlier today, and Humberto Moriera writes in on Super Chat, I'm a Mexican living and working in the US, can't vote, but I'd like to highlight how the United States is a beacon worldwide. I firmly believe that if the US does well, the world will be a better place. There are details where I disagree with TYT, but you are on the best side of history. Thank you, we really appreciate it. And he went on to say, some Mexicans are still holding out hope for the American electoral process and the eventual result and a return to normalcy. Humberto, we're all looking for a return to normalcy, but the guy in the White House will not let us have it, and neither will the entire corrupt Republican Party and the inept Democratic Party. Last one is from Twitch. LMG15 says, congressional Dems are sitting calmly in a burning building. That's an excellent description. I love our members. I love these comments. Keep them going. We do the show together. You could be a member on YouTube by hitting the join button below the video. Everyone else, tyt.com/join. Actually on Twitch, it's the easiest of all. If you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you. And we still get the revenue. It's a giant win-win. Thank you to everybody. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. While Donald Trump continues to refuse concession in the 2020 presidential election, Rudy Giuliani is still bungling any attempt at legally overturning the election results. Now, they've brought their cases to court. Every time they've done so, judges have basically noticed that there's no evidence and the cases get thrown out. As a result, on Thursday, meaning today, the Trump campaign did drop the lawsuit seeking to block Michigan's results, a sign perhaps that they believe their most likely path to success is a political one, persuading the state's elected Republicans to award Trump a state he lost. Now, Time also reports a similar theme when it comes to Rudy Giuliani, who had an unhinged, crazy press conference this morning. Trump's lawyers don't have to win in court. They only have to wreak enough havoc in the legal system and sow enough doubt among among the American public that state boards slow their process of certifying the election results, thus potentially politicizing the process by which states confirm the electoral winner. And so one of the other examples of the chaos they're trying to sow in this electoral process is the Wayne County Board of Canvassers have already voted unanimously to certify the election results, which indicate that Joe Biden won their county. But at the same time, we're hearing from Trump's legal team, including Jenna Ellis, who's the legal advisor for the Trump campaign, saying things like this. She actually tweeted this: breaking, this evening, the County Board of Canvassers in Wayne County, Michigan refused to certify the election results. That's a lie. They did certify the election results. If the state board follows suit, the Republican state legislator will select the electors. Huge win for Donald Trump. I mean, they're trying to steal the election in plain sight. There is no question about it. And during Rudy Giuliani's press conference today, he aired all sorts of grievances regarding so-called widespread election fraud, refused to provide evidence, even though he claimed that he had the evidence, and proceeded to say things that have already been debunked in court. And I'll go through a little bit of that in just a minute, but Cenk, why don't you jump in?
So guys, you have to understand that this is not conjecture and this is not our perspective. When Donald Trump drops the lawsuit, the actual case in Michigan, that means he has no evidence that could overturn the results. So when he goes to the certification process and the representatives to just hand him the electors instead of Biden, he's basically saying, we know we lost this election. There's no earthly way we could prove it in court because we don't have any evidence. So let's just steal it. We're allowed to steal it if you just name different electors. Would that end democracy? Yeah, it would, but who cares? We'd remain in charge. So dropping a lawsuit and going to the electors is by definition admitting we lost, but we'd like to steal it nonetheless. So that's the kind of outrage that we're in right now. Meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani says, I have secret evidence. Sidney Powell, I covered this before. She says, we have a fire hose of secret evidence. Okay, but the good news for you, Rudy, you went to court. Court is where you present the secret evidence. You can't go to court and say, Your Honor, you should definitely rule in our favor, but we're gonna have to keep all of our evidence secret. That's not really how it works. And when he went to court, he got clowned, absolute clowned. So I'll give you more details on that in a bit.
Right, so I mean, they've lost every case. And I think maybe we should watch some of what the press conference looks like. But let me just note, hold on, let me bring up this article, because the New York Times actually did a great job going through all the various accusations, all the various claims that Rudy Giuliani had during this morning press conference. And again, the whole point here is to confuse people, sow chaos. People don't know what's true, what's untrue. Are most people gonna sit down and read the actual court proceedings? Are they gonna read these insanely detailed articles about what actually happened in these court cases? It's unlikely, and that's why the Republicans are winning the messaging war here, especially when it comes to their base of voters. At this point, the majority of Republican voters think that we didn't have a free and fair election, even though all of the evidence proves otherwise. So some of the things that Rudy Giuliani brought up, he made all sorts of accusations about Dominion voting systems and how it's being manipulated by Venezuela. There has been no evidence of that whatsoever, none.
And Mars, by the way, also manipulating Dominion, because everybody knows that really we go to Venezuela to run our elections. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to believe that we're letting Venezuela run our elections?
Giuliani further said that the Trump campaign, and he kept mentioning this over and over again, had affidavits proving that nearly 700,000 mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania had been tainted, but no such affidavits have been filed in the campaign's federal lawsuit in Pennsylvania that's seeking to halt the certification of the vote there. Moreover, Giuliani never mentioned the affidavits when he personally appeared at a hearing in the case on Tuesday afternoon. So these are all of the debunked allegations that he brought up during the press conference. Again, he's doing this intentionally to confuse people. And then at the same time, you have the Trump campaign essentially trying to work with Republican state lawmakers to influence the state's decision in either certifying the election results or choosing a slate of electors who could influence the final outcome of this election.
All right, more clownishness. They go to court and they hand in a complaint and they signed for the judge. People are like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're just trying to save our time. No, that's not how it works. You're forging the judge's signature? Are you guys insane? Fraud. So they're like, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. But then they do a second amended complaint and they hand that in without the judge's signature, because obviously they did something wrong, right? It's not a good idea to anger the judge by forging your signature before you start the case. So, but instead of writing second amended complaint, they write second amendment complaint. So it's partly to solve confusion so they could just say, kind of fraud, whatever, just give us the election, who cares, let's steal it. But the second reason is because they're actually genuinely confused themselves. I think that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani have clear mental decline issues, massive mental decline issues. I think they're both like borderline, past the borderline lunatics. Like if I was their family member, I would try to, I would talk to getting them involuntary mental health counseling. Because they desperately need it. They don't know what they're doing at all. The Republican Party now run by two literal lunatics.
And look, I mean, Cenk, you've mentioned this before, but I think it's more relevant now than ever. Once Donald Trump is no longer president, once Joe Biden has been inaugurated, Trump is facing serious legal issues. So for instance, the New York Attorney General said that she has 67 indictments on Trump ready to be unsealed on January 21st. That's the day after Inauguration Day. So you can understand his very real personal interest in preventing Joe Biden from taking office. And so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an administration, a campaign that's doing anything and everything to protect Donald Trump while simultaneously dismantling our democratic process. And you're right, Democrats are not doing enough to ensure that there is a transition of power. At this point, peaceful transition of power. I don't even think that's possible, but a transition of power. We need to get the ball rolling on that. And thinking that, hey, maybe if we just don't take this seriously, it'll go away, is not the right move. It's not the right strategy.
Guys, if you say, I have no evidence to present in court, but I'd like an election in Michigan where I lost by 157,000 votes to go to me anyway, there's another word for that. That's called a coup. And so that's what they're in the middle of right now. Will they succeed in the coup? I hope not, I don't think so. But you know how you have to fight a coup? By fighting a coup. In this case, you could fight it legally, you could fight it rhetorically, you could fight it politically. So up and at them, Democrats. This is the moment where you're supposed to fight against the coup by at least speaking out against it. So far, sound of silence. By the way, progressives, stop listening to Democratic leadership. They're the dumbest people on the planet. You get up and fight Trump and the Republicans. You call it a coup. You call it a stealing of an election. Don't listen to Pelosi and Schumer who are telling you not to say anything. They're idiots. They're the idiots who just lost the election for the House and the Senate. Why would you listen to them? Oh my God, civility in Washington. They would yell at us. Who cares? Get up and do your job.
All right, finally, let's move on to Rudy Giuliani's press conference. And I mean, if you want someone representing you, I can't imagine you'd be comfortable with this guy. So Rudy Giuliani held an early morning press conference where he aired all sorts of already debunked lies regarding alleged widespread voter fraud. Now, again, they've been debunked. Most of these allegations have already been made in court. Most of these cases have been thrown out of court because of a lack of evidence. But there's the substantive part of this, and then there's the aesthetic part of this, which made me uncomfortable. How about you watch the video and you tell me what you think?
And at once, all for Joe Biden. That's like flipping a coin 186,000 times and it lands on
Rudy's hair dye dripping down his face.
Happen. There is no reasonable explanation for the upshoots, straight lines up. I'm not even talking about an angle. I'm talking about some massive straight
I just saw it pop up on the stream.
So the people on the hot mic are the tech guys who set up the stream for Rudy Giuliani. I mean, and so they didn't realize that their mics were up and that people watching the stream can hear them make fun of Rudy Giuliani and the fact that he had like discolored sweat dripping down the side of his face.
If that's what it is. All right, so look, it's such a clown show that even Rudy's own people are clowning him behind the scenes, but they themselves are clowns, so they leave the mic open so the whole world can hear them clowning their boss. I mean, that right there in a nutshell is exactly what Rudy Giuliani is. And look at that. I mean, he's literally dying out there. And I guess we found the leaker in the Trump administration. And so they, by the way, they said we had a meltdown. We had a meltdown in 2016. That dude is literally melting down, literally. So, I mean, there's this insane conspiracy theory that half the Republican Party, according to a poll, believe might be possible that the Democratic leadership are doing brain juice harvesting.
Obviously.
And I was like, what is that? What is that? I don't even know what that means, you lunatics. Oh, my bad. Republicans always do projection. We always tell you that at TYT. Whatever they're doing, they do. Because if there's brain juice harvesting, that Giuliani picture is probably what it looks like. Ugh. Maybe it's the brain juice leaking out.
Who would want to harvest
people have
that?
noticed, by the way, they say, well, I don't know, maybe that's literally the swamp leaking out of his brain or the literal crap in his brain leaking out. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, they've got to get it under control. So this is the unhinged lunatic in charge of Trump's legal team that has presented zero evidence in any court. And this is who 68% of Republicans hate. I believe him completely. The election is rigged. Rudy is right. Can you believe that about a third of this country looks at that lunatic and goes, oh yeah, he nailed it. He's the best lawyer in the country. Yeah,
I can believe it. I'm pretty desensitized to things at this point, following 2016's election, but I have more. So as I mentioned, Rudy Giuliani brought up a bunch of claims about voter fraud that have already been tossed out of court because of lack of evidence. There hasn't been any evidence. And so here's a fun compilation video showing you what that train wreck looked like this morning.
I assume if she's working for the, I assume if she's working for the city of Detroit that she's a Democrat. Unless you're stupid, you knew that a lot of people were coming over from Camden to vote. They do every year. Happens all the time in Philly. It's about as frequent as getting beaten up at a Philadelphia Eagle football game. Happens all the time, and it's allowed to happen because it is a Democrat corrupt city. So you see a change as a result of the election in Michigan. If you take out Wayne County, probably the closest they got is from here to the back of that room. We could do like a. Did you all watch My Cousin Vinny? You know the movie? It's one of my favorite law movies because he comes from Brooklyn. And when the nice lady who said she saw, and then he says to her, how many fingers do I got up? And she says, 3. Well, she was too far away. The minute you approve this, it's thrown away, gone for eternity. The only thing left is the vote. That could have been Mickey Mouse.
Every claim that he made during that crazy press conference has been debunked. Giuliani quoted a Detroit poll worker named Jesse Jacob, who submitted an affidavit in the case Constantino, my bad, versus City of Detroit. Jacob claimed that she had witnessed poll workers in Detroit, a heavily Democratic city, encouraging voters to cast their ballots for Biden, and that while she was working at a satellite location, she was instructed by her superiors not to ask for voters' identification. Wow, that seems serious. But this actually played out in court. On Friday, however, that case was dismissed by a Michigan court judge, Timothy Kenny, who said that several of the charges it contained were rife with speculation and guesswork. Judge Kenny specifically addressed Jacob's accusations, saying they were generalized and asserted behavior with no date, location, frequency, or names of employees. That's just one example. There's a long list of other examples.
So I don't know if Mickey Mouse or my cousin Vinny is the more important point to address here. So let me just start with the count from the back of the room. He said, he says there's 3 when there's 2. Dude, you're literally doing that right now. You're saying even though Joe Biden won Michigan by 157,000 votes, I'm gonna go in the back of the room and say Trump won by 2. Okay, all right, wait up. So if you have evidence about Michigan, give it to us. He says, well, look, the guys are worried that there was clerical errors and a couple hundred votes in Wayne County. But they're like, wait, war on math. He lost by 157,000. Even if that charge were true, which by the way, they're not even making that. They said maybe there might have been a clerical error in a couple hundred votes. There's more clerical errors in the Republican counties. He says, no, don't recount those. So you want to recount Detroit? Well, who cares if you pick up a couple hundred votes? No, I don't want to recount Detroit. I just want to take all those votes, which are 80% black. I'm just going to burn them. I don't want them. So let's just not count any of those legal votes. That in itself is a crime, to not count legal votes and to interfere with the counting of legal votes. And that's what Giuliani wants to do. How about in Pennsylvania? They were too far and stuff. They already adjudicated that. They went to court and they said there were no Republican observers in the room. And the judge's like, wait, were there no Republican observers? Well, there was non-zero Republican observers. What the hell does non-zero mean? Yes, there were Republican observers in the room. Okay, so what's the problem? Were they far away as Democrats? Yeah, they were in the same place. So what? Nothing. They've lost every single case. Everything he's saying is an unbelievable lie and said in obviously buffoonish ways. But guys, it's easy for the elites in Washington to snicker at Rudy and for us rational people to look at him and feel both sad and amused at the same time. I get all that, right? But you have to remember, a lot of voters in this country, predominantly Republicans, are not that bright. He just has to get out there and be a sweaty mess and say they cheated, we win, and they'll believe him. They'll believe him because he's the only one pretending to talk about voter fraud. So you have to actually counter him. You have to do the things we're doing. You have to actually give the evidence on the other side. And again, the Democrats continue to be silent with their usual ridiculous strategy of never countering Republicans.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about Joe Biden's cabinet and how Rahm Emanuel's name is being floated.
Oh, for God's sake, man.
We'll be back.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will. Everyone who contributes at tyt.com/go helps to get the progressive message out. You guys are the best. So let me do shout outs here. Mark H in Maryland, $50. William in West Virginia, $27. Carissa in Oklahoma, $5. Jude in California, $50. Robin in New Jersey, $50. Steven in California, $420. We love you guys. You help us beat back all the right wingers with all their billionaire money. Let's do it together at tyt.com/go. PragerU is a right-wing media outlet that gets $20 to $25 million a year from billionaire backers. TYT doesn't have billionaires cutting us checks, but the good news is that we don't need them. Okay. Bring it down. TYT can beat the right-wing media and their billionaire funders with contributions of just $200,000 a month from TYT fans donating to tyt.com/go. And we're already halfway to our goal. Look, whether you give $3 or $3,000, your contribution helps us press on. And it might sound like it's a lot of money, but remember, it's only 10% of what they get from billionaires in these giant checks. And with 10% of their money, we're mauling them. And we can continue to get that progressive message out to everybody. And since we're only accountable to you, our fans, and not to corporate backers, we can cover topics like Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and definitely getting money out of politics.
When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total, and that's the way it's got to be.
2020 is everything. Everything will be decided in 2020, and then we'll either have pessimism a long time, or we'll have optimism.
There is some good news when it comes to elections throughout the country, especially for progressives.
He's struggling in polls. He's trailing Joe Biden in many of these battleground states. And he knows that if he makes it difficult for voters to cast their ballots, especially as we're dealing with this pandemic, well, maybe it'll give him an edge over Biden.
We need to get rid of these people who are in office who enable these systems that continue to oppress us. Start using your votes and your dollars for the people who want to preserve your community and your humanity.
Defiance is what you need in order to fight for what you know is right. The fight never ends.
Progressive candidates come on this show, we help them, and they've at least got a fighter's chance.
Expand the squad.
Here we go, Squad 2.0. Corey Bush, Jamal Bowman. And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
This time, it's real. If he wins another term, God knows what he'll do to our government, our democracy, and our way of life.
We need solidarity, and it begins with you.
Who's gonna fix it? Who's gonna fix it? Goddamn right. I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you or that you were
that it
doing
was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
It is wrong to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country.
Look, I tell you guys, most important thing is voting in primaries. Primaries.
I hope every American will vote for the candidate and party of his choice, but vote.
We cannot continue to complain about corruption and complain about what's happening in this country and continue to vote for it.
Let's get it right this time. It could be a moment of redemption for what happened in 2016. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. A quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Math Leaks, as opposed to Die Leaks, which Rudy's a sponsor for. It's to help you tutor your kids from junior high all the way through college. You could use it for yourself, obviously. tyt.com/math. It's actually a great program. Check it out. If you could help us out, that would be great. I want to check in on tyt.com/go. I know that these are tough times for everybody, so only do what you can, guys. Well, we're at 79,995. Can I see 80,000? That'd be $5 from anybody. So tyt.com/go. We appreciate it. You make this show possible. Speaking of you guys, let me go to the members. Greg writes in, brilliant point. He says, pre-election, Joe Biden is suffering from dementia and cannot be president since he doesn't have the mental capacity. Post-election, Joe Biden masterminded and implemented a national voter fraud network across multiple states, including software companies and sophisticated vote switching and foreign governments. And MAGA just rolls with it. Greg, that's exactly right. And they literally believe that with all their heart and whatever little minds they have, and don't see the irony in it at all. Anyway, he's in the member section, tyt.com/join to become a member. Jan Elephant on Super Chat says, love you, TYT. Your hair looks lovely today, Anna.
Thank you, I washed it.
Will you be covering the Laura Ingraham AOC video trying to seduce progressives to join the GOP is weird and laughable, but not stupid considering all the hate from the establishment Dems? Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because in the post game for the members, I want to tell you about how Tucker Carlson and his team tried to do that to me. So I've never shared that story before. It's really interesting. Let's do it in the post game for members when we have more time. tyt.com/join to become a member. Or if you're watching on YouTube, it's super easy. Hit the join button below. You got to join at the essentials level to get the post games. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. So far, names that have been floated for Joe Biden's cabinet have been pretty disastrous. Just yesterday, we shared the story of how Louisiana Representative Cedric Richmond, who is a huge fan of fossil fuel money, was named as the director of the Office of Public Engagement. Now we're learning that Rahm Emanuel, who was a failed mayor of Chicago, is being considered for transportation secretary. Now that decision hasn't been made yet. His name is being floated, he's being considered, but I think we should know a little more about about Rahm Emanuel, and progressives should certainly push back on this. In fact, one Chicago City Council member, Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez, wrote an open letter to Joe Biden urging him to avoid choosing Rahm. So here's what she writes. As an elected city council member of Chicago with years as an educator and activist, living, working, and organizing in communities that have been devastated by the policies Emanuel pursued as mayor, I write to insist in the strongest terms possible that you do not choose Emanuel as a staffer for your administration. If you want to root out systemic racism, defend democracy, and build a society that leaves no one behind, all worthy goals mentioned in your victory speech, I can think of a few people worse for the job than the man who earned the nickname Mayor 1% while in office. So Rahm Emanuel did awful things in Chicago, including shutting down public schools in predominantly black neighborhoods. He helped also cover up the police murder of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald back in 2014. He was shot 16 times, by the way, including when he was already laying on the ground. Rahm Emanuel closed 50 public schools in Chicago. Most of the schools served African-American children on the south side and west sides of the city, which are now missing key pillars of their communities. Meanwhile, some of the schools are now being converted into my favorite, expensive apartment and condo buildings. And obviously I'm being sarcastic there. This is the kind of stuff that enrages me beyond words. Emanuel also refused to end the city's blatantly undemocratic method of assembling a school board whose members are chosen by and accountable to the mayor rather than the people of Chicago. He also handpicked Chicago Public Schools CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett, who was sent to federal prison after pleading guilty to a multi-million-dollar kickback scheme involving public school money. A lot of wins here, but there's more. I mean, there's so many other details that I can get to, but Cenk, I wanted to give you a chance to share your thoughts.
Yeah, first of all, those good folks in Chicago are doing a petition to make sure that Rahm Emanuel doesn't go on the cabinet. We'll have the link in the description box below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. It's not our petition, it's their petition. I want to support it. So Rahm Emanuel is the guy who famously said when he was chief of staff for Barack Obama, called liberals effing retarded, okay? That's his words, not my words. I just wanted you to understand what he thinks of progressives. He was Obama's chief of staff. He despises progressives. He loves money in politics. His campaigns were drenched in money. And then in a shocking development, he wound up giving giant breaks and deals in the ways that Anna explained, especially for his real estate developers, private education donors, you name it. Every one of those categories, he wound up helping them instead of the voters and citizens of Chicago. What a wonderful coincidence. And by the way, the media is like, Rahm Emanuel, isn't he a great fighter for Democrats? Hilarious, hilarious. Now, no one props up the mythology of Rahm Emanuel and how tough he is. He's only tough on his own voters.
Yes.
He's never, ever been tough on a single Republican. He's a total weakling and coward when it comes to fighting Republicans.
His policies were so disastrous to African-American residents in Chicago that it led to an exodus of 200,000 black residents. 200,000. They got priced out of Chicago because of his policy. So for instance, through Chicago's tax increment financing program, which supposedly exists to fight blight in the city, Emanuel has given away enormous amounts of money to neighborhoods and institutions that are anything but blighted. Some of his greatest hits include giving $55 million to DePaul University to purchase a new basketball stadium, millions funneled to tourist magnet Navy Pier through an elaborate shell game, and another $2 billion in subsidies for luxury mega developments on his way out the door. Awful, awful, awful.
Yeah, blighted neighborhoods. I meant luxury mega condos for all my donors to take advantage of. And Biden's considering Rahm Emanuel. Why? Why would you consider? Why don't you just consider Joe Lieberman? Oh my God, I shouldn't have said it. He probably will. Why don't you just consider Mitch McConnell for your cabinet? Maybe we can get him out of the Senate. Is there anyone you wouldn't consider for your cabinet that is this deeply conservative and this deeply corrupt within the Democratic Party? By the way, not just within the Democratic Party. He's also considering Republicans. So I guess if you're considering Republicans, maybe Rahm Emanuel does make sense. So far, Biden's team, one good note, he picked Ron Klain as chief of staff. That was great. Everything else has been a disaster. Because conservative after conservative on the cabinet and being considered, and won't fight for his voters at all right now. All right, we have so much more in the postgame. Hit the join button below or tyt.com/join, including the story of how Tucker tried to get me to go on Fox News. It's an amazing story. We'll be right back for the members.